There's something that popped up here.
Stefan, go ahead.
Hey, Doug, I know you've talked a lot about just the importance of practice for you guys as you kind of get used to, your staff playing with these players. Has it been a little different maybe this past week now that you kind of had that exhibition game to look at?
Yeah, I think their attention, our attention, and just like every team in the country, it starts to narrow a little bit as there's some outside competition involved. And it's just nice to play against some other jerseys and to use that in film. And it's not always that something changes, it's just something can get a little bit crisper or cleaner in terms of how you inbound the ball, how fast you can get the ball out of bounds and where you want your outlet thrown. So yeah, it's and again, it's a process, and I almost hate saying that word on an interview because it just gets so overused along with culture. Our culture is really coming around. I yawn when I hear those things, but maybe identity is the better word. Is like we are fighting to have an identity. We don't quite have it yet, but it just seems like we're getting a little bit closer in terms of how we're paying attention to some of the details in order for us to play the way that we want to play.
Stefan, you can go ahead.
I guess kind of following up with that, I know after the exhibition, you talked a lot about Rukia Jackson and how she played and the focal point that she'll be for this offense. Now that you look at the film, what do you kind of feel that she did well against Mississippi College, and what things do you think that are still have kind of improve on in her game?
Well, everything with Rukia is based on her base and balance. So you could say her three-point shot, you could say her post-up game, you could say her drives from the right, left, or the middle. When she has a base, and that's where I think she's made tremendous strides from last year to this year, is that she's able to dictate where she wants to go, how she's going to land, how strong she is. Even though she is has a slight frame, she's extremely powerful. So I would say the first thing that came to mind, with her performance in the exhibition game was just she was a pro. Her mentality of coming out, regardless of the opponent, regardless of the score, she just acted and conducted herself like a pro and very businesslike. So, and again, it's never a one man show or one woman show. It's everybody working together. But, when you have a player or a couple players that command a player and a half to defend them, that allows the next person who catches the ball a little more time and space to make a decision.
All right, Andy, go ahead.
Hey, Doug, I hope you're doing well today. You mentioned, I guess, identity is the term you used. What do you don't have it yet, but what do you hope that identity can be? What do you, like, if you envision this team's identity, what is that identity?
Just attacking defensively, attacking offensively, in playing Mississippi State's going to be like going to the dentist. It's just no fun. So that would be a big picture of what I would want us to feel like. And there's so many details that go into that. It says that every time somebody touches the ball, they are a threat at that basket to either shoot it or drive it. But at the same time, we're not being unselfish. We're not wasting dribbles. We're not playing a brand of basketball that, one's not fun to watch, two, it's really hard to win with, and three, nobody wants to play with that unless you're the guy with the ball. So we want to be able to share that thing, but really it's an attacking type thing. So get that ball down fast. Yes. Shoot a wide open three. Absolutely. But if it takes 20, 25 seconds to run offense, sometimes that's a good thing for your defense because you're wearing out the legs of the opponent because they're having to defend multiple actions. So just that relentless pursuit of the attack, and then defensively, the hand pressure on that ball so people just can't see and throw strikes and direct passes around the perimeter, because if they're able to do that, we're in trouble because of some size issues.
Go ahead, Robbie.
Hey, Coach. You mentioned the first time we talked to you that you were, I guess y'all didn't have the size that you might want, and you had kind of a smaller lineup, and you're going to have to use your advantages there. How do you alleviate some of those size concerns and the size differentials that you're going to face in the SEC and even in the non-conference schedule?
It's a great question. It's going to be a battle, and it's not going to be a tricky scheme. It's just going to be straight work ethic. And to go back to my last answer, some of it's got to be taking away vision of passers. They cannot see all the openings that might be there and an advantage there, and then we might have to make them turn. And so if we can take away their vision just a little bit, then we can fix our feet in the post defense and maybe push them out a little bit further than they want, and then maybe have to lob a pass into the post, and then we use our speed on the backside to swarm it and try to get a steal. I don't know if we have the depth to full court press a whole game. We will take it, as game to game with that. There'll be certain spots where we might have to pick it up on full court and run and jump a little bit from behind. But I don't think it's going to be, I think it's going to be more of a surprise tactic than a steady dose of that's our identity. I just don't know if we have enough players right now to be able to do that consistently.
All right, Tanner, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how are you? Just one quick question about the group of guys that practices against the women's team there. How instrumental have they been in practice and kind of getting you guys ready to start this sure enough schedule?
Well, I think they're going to be. We haven't been as organized as I'd want to be, because we just haven't had a consistent group yet. And so that's, when you're trying to develop a whole program, that's a big part of it. And I'm excited about today's practice, for instance. We have a full group of guys, and when we have that group, it's tremendous. We get different looks. They make you pay if you if you don't have the right footwork defensively, if your hands are down and they can just throw right over your head. If you're not working your post defense, so to me, it's the best thing about having those guys out there is that when you make a mistake, like you're going to give up a bucket.
All right, Andy, go ahead.
Hey, Doug, obviously there's a lot of kind of unknowns with certain things. How flexible do you think this coaching staff needs to be in terms of the scheme and what you guys, can do and can accomplish as the season goes on?
I do think we need to be flexible with personnel and maybe not having certain players married into a position and to have the variety and flexibility, which we have been developing that. It does take a little bit of time for people to feel comfortable moving all over. And it's, I always say whoever has the ball is the quarterback. And so in football, there's one quarterback, but we have 5 quarterbacks out there. And so that's why the skill portion of it is so important. But you have to be careful too, because there's always a scheme. There's always an idea. There's always something out there. Well, this would be great against this team. It would be if you had started from day one working on icing a side ball screen. It's a great coverage. We hadn't worked on it, so it's probably not a great coverage just to use it, because even though schematically it's a nice thing to do against this team, it's not for us. And so there has to be a consistency there with a foundation in terms of what you believe in, but also you can't be so hard-headed and not make some slight adjustments within that, maybe changing a matchup, maybe switching something. There's room for variety, but I always want to be careful not just to change for the sake of changing.
All right, Stefan, go ahead.
Doug, with the coaches preseason poll, I think Mississippi State was predicted to finish 9th, and then in some of the bracketology, you guys are right outside, among those first 4 teams out. Is that something you guys try to talk about at all? Kind of use as motivation for a program that not too long ago was consistently in the NCAA tournament and making runs?
I don't know about the other people. I don't. I think I had heard that we were chose 9th. It's just not a big deal to me. If you're first, that's great. You're talking to your team a certain way. If you're last, you're talking to your team a certain way. I mean, we have so many things to take care of with ourselves. What other people think about us, it really isn't a major concern of mine, and I hope not theirs either, because that kind of stuff is usually like good locker room stuff, and it's good for about 4 minutes, and that's it. And then any weakness that you have foundationally, it's going to show up after that, and all that rah stuff is gone. And we'd rather be try to teach for the long run and try to teach solid basketball.
John, go ahead.
Doug, you guys had this exhibition the other night, but now, I mean, the season's getting underway, and with how the last couple of weeks have been, and getting players bought in and dealing with such like a short turnover, how excited are you to finally just be able to get out there and show fans, what this team is made of?
It's always exciting, that first game. It's exciting the first practice. And you get into a rhythm. You get into a rhythm of scouting reports. You get in a rhythm of how to run practice and what it means, and in the importance of something that a coach is saying on October 15th sometimes is different, when the game is tomorrow. Like the words, the ears are a little bit better. The eyes are on you. You can just feel it escalate. And then throughout the whole season, we get better at a scouting report. We get better at our attention to detail. That is just the way normal teams should work. But again, we're not going to get too caught up in any scouting report, because the most important scouting report is us. In how we, running our inbounds play is more important than stopping, knowing what you're going to run. Now, knowing the concepts of how to stop an inbounds play, that's very important. So. But the game itself is dessert. It's just icing on the cake. And these players work really hard, and players all over the country are working really hard to get to this point. And we're trying to get to our best. We're trying to get to our best as often as we can. But the true struggle and the growth is what you do in between while you're trying to get to your best. When you're having an off day, well, they're sealing somebody high-low on something that we worked at. How do we respond? What is our next play attitude towards that? And again, you need games for that. You have to have the test. So we can have great practices. We can do that. But I think we all kind of found out during COVID, you have so many practices without being tested. Your growth isn't very good. We need tests right now. And hopefully they come out in our favor, but if they don't, they're just giving us knowledge and wisdom to move forward.
All right, we've got time for a couple more. If you guys have questions, please utilize that raise your hand function. We'll go to Stefan right now.
Yeah, kind of following along those lines, the games you got this week, Alabama State was a couple points away from being a tournament team last year. South Dakota State is usually right on the edge there in terms of being a tournament team. What do you kind of see from your opponents this week? And do you think they can kind of present the test you guys are looking for?
Yeah, I really do think they can provide more than a test. I think they're good. Starting with Alabama State, and they were 16-4 last year, and they had a lot of returners, and they are athletic, and they do play a nice high-low game with some thick, strong post play. So that's going to present some challenges, and they like to run. So 73 points a game. They shoot a pretty high rate from three, somewhere around 36%. So, again, scheme, you're trying to maybe have some sort of player that's spying on that post player, and then they're skipping it for threes. So our closeout game has got to be really good. But I think if we're not sound, I mean, this is going to be a really tough challenge for us, that right off the bat. Then obviously South Dakota State, it seems like they're always in the tournament. And that's a school I grew up in, South Dakota, and I have some fond memories of watching some battles against South Dakota State and the University of South Dakota. And those games would start out and they'd throw jackrabbits out on the floor, and it'd all be an automatic technical. But the atmosphere and the fondness that they have for the game is pretty special.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Colin. Colin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. You talked a couple of weeks ago about the importance of patience as you're trying to add layers onto the foundation. in building a program towards an identity. How important do you think it is adding in the specificness of focusing on one individual opponent to that mix, even so soon into your reign?
Yeah, it's a balancing act for sure. And putting together today's practice plan, how much is on Alabama State, how much is on us? It's always going to favor us, always. And then hopefully throughout the course of practice, we're dealing with specific concepts, excuse me, specific concepts that particular team is doing. So if there's a dribble handoff action on the wings, well, we've got that built into our habits of movement to start off practice. So whether it's Alabama State or South Dakota State, they do that. And there's certain teams that kind of do the same stuff. So, and again, that's why teams get to be better at the scouting reports because, well, that's the same thing that the other team does. Right now, some of these freshmen maybe haven't seen it at all. So they're hearing it for the first time. They're trying to figure out how to get off that dribble handoff to allow that defender on the cutter to get through, blow it up, or get underneath. But we're hoping that our concepts early on covering a lot of ground in defending multiple opponents. But there's always something special with that opponent. There's something special with their personnel that has to be taken care of. But we never want that to be more important than what we're doing. But at the same time, we're not going to ignore it at all. We're going to be as well prepared as we can.
All right, that'll do it. Thanks a lot, Coach.
Thanks.